Yeah, I think to anyone who hears that kind of message, there is no one way of doing it. And I think
Mm.
as coaches, analysts, or whatever form of sport you're in, and obviously we're talking specifically football, there is no straight line to to how to improve and how to progress. It never goes straight. It's always wobbly.
Yeah, up
And
and down. Yeah.
we look at the top coaches, the Pep Guardiolas from obviously a Man City fan, and the Jurgen Klopps from my side. Is For me, I never look at them and what they've done and gone, I'm going to do exactly that.
Oh yeah. No.
It doesn't work that way. And the reason, I mean, just for the reason I call this coaching realities is it's storytelling, and this is your reality as a coach. You've gone down one route, and I asked the difficult questions to try and figure out the decisions you make along the way. To do the masters, to do the analysis. Now, obviously, you're going into the coaching.
In terms of the skills that I need in analysis, I think one of the key ones is just being kind of open-minded.
Yeah.
And not in a sense of like, I mean, you're gonna be working with different coaches, and most of those times they might have different kind of philosophies or different ideas, or they'll be looking for something completely different to what you think, or what you think the game should be played like, or what you think is important. And it's having that open-mindedness to say, okay, this is what they basically will have to kind of try and get, and be willingness kind of like, adapt to that, and think outside your comfort zone sort of thing, and not just say, okay, this is how we play out from the back. If they don't do this, it's wrong. No, it's all about like, can we work with like what is it that we're looking to find as a whole team? Like what are different coaches we're trying to find? So I think that having that open-mindedness, willingness to kind of learn about different approaches and different ways of playing the game, kind of helps you become better. And I mean, that's how you start recognizing some of the small patterns in the game. So I have to try and balance that enjoyment and also getting them to play as a team, understanding the fundamentals of football and how to play football. And yeah, I think, again, as I mentioned earlier about understanding your participants and not making your sessions everything tailored to them. So I think one of the biggest shifts for me was understanding them and actually making sure that my expectations are not too high, and then that they're not too low. So trying to find that right balance with them, and making sure that the content that I'm going out there to teach them in training works for them, and then that my expectations for what I'm expecting to see in the game works for them. So I think, I think it does. I think if you start then engaging in that reflective practice, you start thinking about your sessions, and even if you went perfectly fine, then you reflect on it. Then why did it go well? Start asking that why question. Why did it go well? Why did that work? Why did that not work? What about that participant? What about at that point? Why was that happening? You start to think about those little things and how you influence them, and how you influence their behavior, how you influence the outcome of pretty much everything there. I did my undergrad and I got first class degree. Everything was perfect, right? On paper, I'm a brilliant coach. But if you watch my first session that I coached without you, you'd think like I've never coached football before, right? Because it was just shambles, and in my head I'd forgotten all of that. I'm so up in my own head. I'm thinking, okay, I got
it wasn't that good when you were with me, to be honest. So.
Yeah, exactly.
Go on.
Yeah. After that, I came over and talked to you, and I was panicking and everything, and then after that, that's when I went to like my session. I went back to, after that conversation with you, I went back to the basics, right? What do I know about coaching, right? I need to plan. I need to plan properly. I need to plan something that's appropriate for them. I need to, when I'm doing, I need to think about my behaviors. I need to think about all of this. So that was quite a hard way, basically, of doing that whole process of actually coaching properly, switching over from analyst to coach kind of thing. That whole process was not a very easy transition, basically.
A personal point for me is one of the best bits of advice I ever got. Well, it wasn't even advice, it was a question. It was just one question which set me up for where I am now. Is regardless of what you have now or what you think is realistic, what is the dream? Where's the dream job actually lie? Forget about location, forget about girlfriends, forget about anything to do that can affect anything. Perfect world, what's the dream job? Enjoyed this, and I think the thinking now already the first 10-15 minutes a little bit awkward. That's because, you know, for me, my question asking has to improve already. I know that already. Like to one, I did about 7 or 8 intros before the start of this, trying to figure out what to do. And in terms of anyone who is listening and any coaches who are interested in telling their story on a very casual podcast where I want to talk about coaching reality and not just the perfect world that we get when it comes to listening to podcasts and listening to people on the TV. Like you say, even you scratch your hair about the analysis that the pros do, the pros players do, shall we say. You know, to hear what people actually are doing on the grassroots side and on the academy side and in the professional game where people are still developing.
I wish that you were here to give me everything I want, but I know that life's unfair.
Welcome to the First Coaching Realities podcast. Today you've got me, Joe Sullivan, and Muzi Moyo, the first of hopefully many Coaching Realities podcasts. The idea behind all this is to kind of take a closer look at the grassroots football, the academy football, and coaches coming up through the ranks. Hopefully myself will be able to come up the ranks in the professional football coaching game. And I've worked with Moyo over the past 6 or 7 months at Guiseley. And at some point, hopefully I'll be able to do a podcast where I talk about my coaching journey. But firstly, I want to interview someone that I've worked with closely over the past 6 or 7 months, and whose story I find really, really quite interesting. Me and Moyo funnily met at the Amazon warehouse where we were working as instructors. So not quite the glamorous coaching life that we kind of like to think that we have now. We worked there. When I met Moyo, he said he was doing a master's in analysis. I just started at Guiseley Football Club at the academy. At the time, I was waiting for my move out to Singapore to join Jason South for my coaching journey. Guiseley happily took me on to work there with their academies at under 12. For me, I wanted to get an extra pair of eyes in, and with Moyo being an analyst, and I literally after 2 days of knowing him was like, I like this guy. Spoke to the club and they let me bring him along. In terms of how the Coaching Realities podcasts are going to be, I want them to be more casual, more relaxed. For me, I love watching podcasts. I watch a lot to do with theory, philosophies, styles of play, and they're great for my learning. But I want to have one that's a little bit more on the kind of enjoyable side, kind of reach that more kind of casual viewer. And also for coaches that when you think about philosophy and you think about ideologies, watching things like that can be quite overwhelming. So to watch something that's a little bit more on the toned down side and kind of listen to people's stories, hopefully we can inspire some coaches and get some more coaches on in the future as well. I've got a few guys. One of them is transitioning from being a teacher to a coach, to going through teacher training, to change his mind, to come into coaching. And the other one is I went to university with and currently works in Manchester United. So hopefully I get those guys on the podcast very soon. So we start with Moyo, and instead of him introducing himself first, I'm going to just ask straight away, favorite football club and your favorite memory of football. So it can either be on the wholesome side or it can be on the kind of more wacky and not so serious side. So there you go, Moyo. That's your first question for you, mate.
Okay, so hi. Firstly, thank you for having me here. Just happy to do this as well. Yeah, so obviously I'm currently coaching football as well. My football club that I support is Manchester City, which I know I always get fair, but for me, I'm from Zimbabwe, so if you can see that little map over there, that's where I'm from. You know, in Zimbabwe on the map right now. I used to play football like ever since I could remember. We used to play outside with my mates, like literally on the street, and we just used to kick ball around every day after school, kind of thing. I think that was like my first memories of football, just learning about football then, and like, you know, all the older kids knew about football, and of course we're learning from them, kind of thing. And then yeah, I think that's when I kind of took it on. I started playing football, then I enjoyed it, and then in terms of like the more kind of recent one, of course, I mean, one of my favorite moments is the Aguero moment in 2013 when he scored. Yeah, that classic goal. I mean, as a fan, that was just one of the greatest moments in like footballing history. So, yeah, I think those are like my really kind of standout moments, like in terms of football. And then, yeah, what was the other question? What,
have you been able to go to many Manchester games, or you kind of more?
Not really. No, I went a few years ago. I say a few years ago, a while ago. I went to like I think it was City versus Swansea. Yaya Toure, Sami Nasri. I forgot we all scored. It was quite a while ago, but I haven't been like a few years to be fair. So yeah, I mean, I live all the way up here in the north. Well, it's not that far from Manchester, but still, no, I've not been to that many.
Yeah. Just on a side note, obviously I've known Moyo before I've done this podcast, and obviously I don't know if some people know I'm a Liverpool fan, so Man City and a Liverpool fan hanging out is an interesting one. When I first met Moyo, we won the league, and now obviously I've spent the whole season listening to Man City winning lots of games. Me and Moyo travel to a lot of games with our Guiseley team, with our under 12s, and there's always a football game going on the radio. I think the last game we had together was the last game we had together was Man City losing, was it? When you lost?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
Because when Man City are winning, obviously I'm the designated driver.
Yeah, we lost against Liverpool.
Yeah, I'm the designated driver because head coach takes the wheel, and I dictate what happens. So when Man City are winning, I'll turn that radio off, play my own music, and suddenly when Man City are losing, I'll turn it up to max volume and have a right laugh. So yeah.
It's okay. I'm having the last laugh though this season anyway. So
yeah. I mean, I think I've already spoken to you. I want to do a podcast where I talk about footballers in the Premier League. Obviously, I'm moving to Singapore, so the Singapore League, and maybe comparing notes or talking about the highlights of the week from both the Premier League and Singapore League, and educate some people on the Singaporean League, and talk about everyone knows what's going on in the Premier League and stuff like that. So yeah, that's for another day. I realise how casual this is getting. I'm on the wine. I'm on the Sauvignon Blanc. I'm currently in Thailand at the moment, so it's just getting to what time am I on now? 9 o'clock, whereas for you, Moyo, what time is it?
Like 3.
Like 3 o'clock for you. So yeah, we got our timings just about right. So firstly, I'll let you introduce yourself, Moyo. If you could give us a little bit of an insight of your journey to starting coaching, to getting into coaching, and end it at where you are now.
Okay. So I'm not sure that to start from where I am, work backwards, or start from back then, work forwards. I'll start from where I am right now. Of course, at the moment, I'm currently coaching in an academy, a Guiseley Academy, and I've got like a group of under 12s, the ones that you used to coach. Yeah, I've been there with you for like 7-8 months. And then, of course, I've been doing it by myself for the last 3-4 weeks. And then, yeah, it's my first kind of academy or more kind of serious coaching role. Prior to that, I've done like a lot of grassroots and after school coaching kind of thing, which I found it interesting, but it wasn't something that motivated me that much to get out of bed. I mean, it's grassroots, don't get me wrong. I still enjoy coaching. I still enjoy working with children and like helping them develop, that kind of thing. But I think, of course, with grassroots, the emphasis is not that much on development, it's more enjoyment kind of stuff. So there's only so much you can do in terms of like being creative and thinking as a coach kind of thing. So I did enjoy that side of it, but I think there was always kind of like, I wanted more from coaching than that, basically. I'm also at the moment doing my master's at Liz Beckett in sports science and focusing like on football analysis. So yeah, for me, from an academic point of view, I do enjoy that side of it, especially like focusing on football. I'm a big football fan and doing more skill analysis kind of stuff, which is slightly different obviously from the things that you do in coaching or or football analysis kind of things. So I do enjoy that side of it as well. Prior to all of this, I did my sports coaching degree at Beckett University. Again, had a really lovely time there. And I got to coach a lot of different sports again, but obviously my passion and interest were always held around football. And I think coaching a lot of different sports helped me develop as a coach, because obviously understanding, learning new sports and learning to coach kids and coach different age groups, that kind of thing. I thought that was really an interesting point of view in a sense. And then before that, I was at Wakefield College. Again, did sport. I did BTEC sports, did a lot of football activator kind of thing. Was football. I've always had sports-related jobs basically. So I did football activator, which is trying to get people more involved in sports, that kind of thing. I think that's when I initially got interested in coaching, really, when I was at college. I'm not one of those people that always knew what they wanted to do in their life, sort of thing. Like when you leave school, you know, I want to be a coach, or I want to be a teacher, or that kind of thing. I was never one of those people, but I always knew that I was interested in sports. So I've always chosen like a sports career. And then at college, that's when I think I realized that football coaching is something that I find interesting. And then, yeah, I've also done a lot of analysis work as well. So I've worked with Opta, which you might have heard of them. Like I worked there for like almost 4 years actually, until we got outsourced and they moved to Portugal. And then again, I analyzed like loads of games. I analyzed like well over 1,000 games. And that's ranging from literally Champions League games to Football League, to Premier League, to Bundesliga, Serie A, literally most of the games around the world that you can imagine. We used to code all those games, we'd code them live or post-match, whichever it was. And that was really like the best job you could have. I was doing that while I was doing my sports coaching degree. And I also did football analysis for Bradford City Academy. So again, that was an internship through university, through one of the lecturers that I knew there. They were looking for somebody like, you know, any students that are kind of interested in football analysis, that were kind of proactive and energetic kind of thing, and they were reliable basically. And then I was like, yeah, I want to do it. And again, that was a very valuable experience for me, because it taught me so much about understanding football games, like understanding a match from a tactical point of view. You get to understand, you get to see some of the little things that a lot of people don't notice in games, and yeah, I found that very valuable. Yeah, I think that's about it really. I mean, I've done a lot of other kind of sports related jobs kind of thing, but none that are that relevant.
Yeah. So when it came to the analysis side, I know that you definitely, from the conversations we've had, favor the analysis. What to you is the most appealing thing about doing football analysis?
For me, it's understanding the game. I think everybody has a different point of view. I think it's really interesting when you start seeing other people's point of view. Like we could watch the same game and I could see something completely different and someone else could see something completely different. And it's about your understanding of the game. And I think it's very different. Like, well, my analysis at Opta was very different to my analysis at Bradford City, because analysis for Bradford City was analyzing based on what the coaches want, based on the philosophy for coaches, looking for specific KPIs. So you're looking for something specific based on what the coaches want. Whereas for Opta, it was coding and just looking at games and understanding games.
What's the KPI?
Oh yeah, key performance indicators. Yeah, it's just key performance indicators. Just any key events that happen in a match, that whatever the coach wants. For example, if you've got like, passes, long passes, or cross field passes, whatever, that could be classed as a KPI depending on what the coach wants. So for Bradford City, we had a lot of specific KPIs that we're looking for, like playing out from the back, we're looking for specific things, when the ball crosses a certain point, that kind of thing. Whereas for Opta, it was more general analysis. You collect all the data, like coding, you collect like thousands of events during the game. And then that took a lot of understanding of football as well. Like you have to understand the teams that you do. So you get assigned a team and you get to understand that team, how they play, and how they like to attack, how they like to defend, that kind of thing. So yeah, I think for me, really the most interesting thing about football analysis is just your understanding of the game, and you kind of opens your eyes for two different things, and you get to see a lot of things, and some people may not notice, and how those little things can actually change the game essentially.
Yeah. So obviously the reason I wanted to ask what that was, because I know I've spoken to a lot of people that have always said, "Oh, really want to do analysis." At one point, I wanted to do the analysis at Newcastle United when I was at Northumbria University, and you think about analysis, and you're like, "Oh well," you watch games, and you would you'd think about the tactics used and the philosophies used, and try and find ways to improve play or obviously play against other teams. But actually understanding, for anyone that's interested in going into analysis and doesn't really know what it's about, the terminology and especially the systems that you use is very different from the coaching world. And I think the reason obviously I use you as I want to interview you is because you've done the masters, or you're doing the masters, you're doing the analysis, and you're doing the coaching all at once. And to have all three of them ongoing at the same time is, I'm interested to find how valuable you find things like how you find the three merge together. I don't think many people have been able to do that. And coaches sometimes don't know the analysis side, and analysts don't know the coaching side sometimes. So for you, it's interesting to see the skills that you've learned and what you've been able to do with them. So from that, what skills are key for you in the analysis field first to be able to do?
Okay, first, before I answer that question, I want to touch on something like you kind of mentioned here, like combining the three. So for me, like for my undergrad, my sports coaching degree was based on the concept of who, what, how, and that's essentially like who, what, how, and why. So who are you coaching, what are you coaching, how are you coaching, and why are you coaching that? And for me, like the way I see it, like my coaching is the how part. Coaching is how you coach. It's not necessarily about what you coach. What you coach is then the science part, the academic side of it. Like, this is the different activities that you do to improve this, and this, and that. That's the what, and that's very easy to find out because there's lots of resources online in terms of what to coach. And then there's the how part, which is how you coach, and that's what separates a good coach from a bad coach. That's how you develop from like an amateur coach essentially to being a better coach, and how you monitor your coaching behaviors and how you monitor yourself and present yourself to the participant kind of thing. And then the why as well, understanding the why, like you're doing the sessions that you're doing, that kind of thing. And that's when analysis comes in, and then that's when those activities that you do come out on the games, and you start to see those little patterns. And that's the why part. You need to start recognizing those little patterns and those little trends that you tend to see in the game, and then that's how it all kind of combines together essentially. And yeah, I think that's very interesting. And then in terms of the skills that I need in analysis, I think one of the key ones is just being kind of open-minded.
Yeah.
And not in a sense of like, I mean, you're going to be working with different coaches, and most of those times they might have different kind of philosophies or different ideas, or they'll be looking for something completely different to what you think, or what you think the game should be played like, or what you think is important. And it's having that open-mindedness to say, okay, this is what they basically will have to kind of try and get, and be willingness kind of like, adapt to that and think outside your comfort zone sort of thing, and not just say, okay, this is how we play out from the back. If they don't do this, it's wrong. No, it's all about like, can we work with like what is it that we're looking to find as a whole team? Like what are different coaches we're trying to find? So I think that having that open-mindedness, willingness to kind of learn about different approaches and different ways of playing the game, kind of helps you become better. And I mean, that's how you start recognizing some of the small patterns in the game, because obviously you're very open to learning about different approaches in the game. And yeah, I think you've got to be patient as well. I mean, a lot of analysis takes a lot of time, Especially things like coding, it takes a lot of time. If you want to do it like properly and accurately, it will take you hours and hours. You could have been really patient to kind of like look for everything that you're trying to find, and you want to do the best of your kind of your ability, basically. But yeah, I think that's probably some of my best kind of skills that I've learned so far. Really, I'm sure there's there's more. If you ask like a world-class analyst or something, they'll tell you a lot more. But,
you might be there one day. Like, just again from my point of view, working with Moyo, I always call him my second pair of eyes. You know, when I brought him in, obviously now Moyo is ventured more into the coaching side. I mean, had no choice because I left. But when I left, Moyo stepped into those shoes. And I remember the last session I had, giving him the jacket, giving him the coaching jacket to put on, and you see the difference between someone who gets to have that seat back to observe, which is what Moyo was there to do, to now stepping into the driver's seat. And we'll touch on the difficulties in going from analysis to coaching. But I want to ask, obviously, some analysts go from degrees into analysis jobs, others go to coaching and then into analysis. You've gone the route of doing a master's in analysis and analysis at the same time. Do you think there's been a benefit to doing further education, doing analysis on a master's level to help you with what you've done, especially with your work at Bradford City as well?
Yeah, for me personally, yes. I think it's helped me like understand it a bit more, like from a kind of academic. I know, of course, like, you know, like there's a real world out there. I think for me, understanding the theoretical basis behind a lot of the analysis stuff and the kind of fundamental of analyzing a skill or analyzing a kind of game kind of thing, and understanding that is giving me like a better kind of platform, basically, or kind of better foundation basically for my analysis, if that makes sense. I think it definitely has helped me. If I think it's beneficial in that sense. I'm not saying that don't go the other way and go straight to analysis work, because again, that's a different way of learning. I still think you can still achieve the same goals, the same kind of results essentially by doing that as well. I think it's just down to the person, whichever works for you. And for me, like academically, that was always my strong suit anyways. So it seemed like a necessary step for me to take.
Yeah. In terms of theory, because I know that some coaches, especially that at the lower levels, and I don't mean any disrespect by lower levels, but some people haven't done the academic side of football coaching. So how do you use what you've learned academically, and obviously you speak about theory as well, in your work, if any? Because some people, you know, I don't think I remember every single thing from university that I learned to do with theory and to do with, you know, I did analysis in my sports coaching degree the same as you, but whether I haven't had the opportunity to use it. So it's kind of gone out of my brain a little bit, whereas, you know, you might think about that a little bit differently, how you use theory and whether that's actually played a role in what you do now.
For me, I didn't think it did, to be fair, until recently. I started doing the coaching by myself. I think that's when like I started thinking about it a lot more, because I think after the first coaching session, it didn't go as well as I wanted to go. And then of course, like my first thought was, what went wrong? What went wrong? What went wrong? What went wrong? And then like that was just stuck in that loop, like what went wrong? Couldn't figure it out. And then I think I obviously spoke to you as well after that as well, kind of reflect, kind of having that someone to bounce off ideas with. And then after like I further reflected, I realized that, well, I went to that session, you know, with such high expectations and everything, expecting everything to go perfectly. And then when nothing did go perfectly, I then forgot all the principles of everything that I've learned about coaching, you know, like always have a plan B. Always, like, you know, when you think about your coaching behaviors, what are you doing wrong? What are you doing right? Do your reflective practice. So can you actually then, for every session that you're planning, can you reflect on it? Can you actually reflect what went wrong, what went right? I didn't do that on my first session. Can you actually tailor your sessions to your expectations? Little things like that. And then the more I started to think about it, the more the things that I learned started kind of creeping in. So yeah, I think it has definitely helped. I think there are some things that I think I had to kind of apply in the context. I think some of the things, obviously, like for example, enjoyment. Of course, I want the kids to enjoy, like enjoy the session. I try to make them as enjoyable as possible. But the reality of it is that, you know, it's an academic kind of place, and at the end of the day, the results do matter. It's not the case of like, you know, we just go to the game and then we just enjoy ourselves and then come back home. Because if that was the case, everybody would just get the ball and try to dribble past everybody, right? That is what's going to happen. If we just went there for enjoyment, that's what would happen. So I have to try and balance that enjoyment and also getting them to play as a team, understanding the fundamentals of football and how to play football. And yeah, I think, again, as I mentioned earlier about understanding your participants and not making your sessions everything tailored to them. So I think one of the biggest shifts for me was understanding them and actually making sure that my expectations are not too high and then that they're not too low. So trying to find that right balance with them and making sure that the content that I'm going out there to teach them in training works for them, and then that my expectations for what I'm expecting to see in the game works for them. So I think yeah, I think it does. I think if you start then engaging in that reflective practice, you start thinking about your sessions, and even if you went perfectly fine, then you reflect on it. Then why did it go well? Start asking that why question. Why did it go well? Why did that work? Why did that not work? What about that participant? What about at that point? Why was that happening? You know, you start to think about those little things and how you influence them and how you influence their behavior, how you influence the outcome of pretty much everything there. And then the more you do that, the more you start to kind of learn and you start to see some of the theoretical basis. And yeah, with the enjoyment, again, I try to, I make it a point that, you know, I do make it enjoyable. I'm not going to go out there and do all the structured activities, high intensity, blah, blah, blah. No, I do have like a enjoyment games at the end or in the middle, whatever it is, give them time as well, because at the end of the day, they're kids and they play football because they enjoy football. Yeah. So I have to try to incorporate the enjoyment into their learning. And that's part of the way I approach it, anyways. Incorporate enjoyment in their learning, so that obviously they're still learning something and they still enjoying playing. They want to come back and play more and learn more. So that's how I see it.
Yeah. So just to try and put the three together. Obviously, the Masters. Tell me what's the actual title of the Masters, so I don't get it wrong.
Oh no, it's just sports and exercise science. So it's an overall one. Then you get to specialize in whatever kind of sport you want. So you get to, like, for me, I'm specializing in football analysis.
Yeah. So what I want to do is try and draw a link between the three of them, with your Masters, with your analysis, and with your coaching, because, like you say, with analysis, one of the biggest things for you is the open mind and the game understanding. And one of the biggest things for you as coaching was also understanding players alongside the game understanding. And, you know, some people think you learn academically and some people think you learn by experience. Where would you sit in terms of where you think, I know it's a difficult question, but in terms of how much academic knowledge and how much experience knowledge you would need to kind of become the best version of yourself as a coach, as an analyst?
I think being an analyst and being a coach is slightly different, because I think being a coach is one of the things that you learn by doing. Of course, like, again, I did my undergrad and I got a first class degree. Everything was perfect, right? On paper, I'm a brilliant coach. But if you watch my first session that I coached without you, you'd think like I've never coached football before, right? Because it was just shambles, and in my head I'd forgotten all of that. You know, I'm so up in my own head. I'm thinking, okay, I got this.
It wasn't that good when you were with me, to be honest. So.
Yeah,
Go on.
Yeah. So, like, you know, on paper, like, you know, I'm a brilliant coach, but when I had that session, and that's when I realized that, well, not really. It's not all about, you know, what you learn. It's about putting what you learn into practice. And one of the biggest things I learned from my undergrad was that reflective practice. You know, putting that reflective practice into coaching, making sure that you reflect on it all in the sessions. And look at my masters right now. Of course, it's primarily based on analysis. I think that's slightly different, because I feel like that teaches you the fundamentals of the skills that you need to learn. Whereas with coaching, you do need to actually put into practice to actually see if you can do it in a sense. Whereas with analysis, you can learn the background kind of skills, and then you can then take them into your context. I feel like it's more easily transferable that way. Whereas with coaching, you really do have to then start learning and keep going, because the learning process happens when you actually start coaching. Whereas with analysis, you can learn about something, and then when you understand it, okay, this is how I do it, and then I'll go and do it, kind of thing. I think it's slightly different analysis and coaching in that context, but I think coaching is really difficult because, you know, you can have all the knowledge you want, as long as you can transfer it into coaching and actually then start learning and understand why you're doing what you're doing, then that's when you actually start developing.
So just to kind of, and I know, and you know, through university you have these conversations, you know, I think the overall answer is you can't have one without the other. I think you have to have some form of academic knowledge, whether that be level 1, level 2, UEFA B, UEFA pro license, and also the experience working from grassroots. You know, I mean, I'm not gonna, it's a rant I would like to do at some point. I'm not gonna touch on ex-players going straight into the coaching ranks and within 2 years being professional managers and coaches. But I think there is definitely a balance. But you mentioned about when you started reflecting about your coaching, and that made you remember about what you did at university. Do you think you would reflect the same way about your coaching if you didn't have the academic knowledge before?
At the moment, I would like to say no, but I want to be wary with that because I'm only level 1 at the moment. So I think, of course, I'm not entirely sure about level 2. I think with level 2, then that's where maybe kind of reflective practice come in a bit more in terms of your coaching badges. But had I not gone to university, not really, I wouldn't have thought about it. I wouldn't even have thought about writing my sessions down. I would like have an idea what I'm going to do and then go out there and do it, kind of thing. But now I have to literally plan it all out and then think about, okay, this is what I'm going to do. This is next progression. This next progression. Okay, if it's too complicated, I'm dumbing it down to this. And then again, I started doing that. And then the more I did it, the more I realized that, well, this is just too complicated. You know, I'll be out there because obviously if not, I speak really fast, and that's a problem for me. So if I've got a session that's really complicated, and then I'm like, you know, they're talking for like, you know, 2 minutes, and like, okay, this is what you do, this is what you do. Then they will stop listening, right? And then if I don't reflect on that, if I don't reflect on what I'm saying or how I'm coaching, then how am I going to learn about, you know, what I need to improve on? So I feel like had I not learned about things like coaching behaviors and reflective practice and that plan to review that whole thing, I wouldn't have, I guess, improved or developed in a sense. So,
the interesting thing I've had, like I said, the one when I thought about doing a podcast and I thought about people I wanted on, like you say, you know, you are only a level 1, you are only an FA level 1, and to anyone in the football coaching world, they'd be like, academy football coach, FA level 1, no chance. But you speak like you are level 2, possibly UEFA B, with the knowledge you have, especially about, you know, the way you coach behaviours, the way you reflect, the planning, the game understanding. Obviously, I witnessed it firsthand. And the reason you have that knowledge, I think, is from the university. Would you agree with that? Do you think the reason you have that knowledge? And I think that everyone thinks that you have to have level 2, level UEFA B, A license. But if they looked at you and went for your knowledge based off of what you actually know after speaking to you, do you think that, and I know this is again a more difficult question, do you think there should be more of a fairer interest in coaches who have done the university side and the masters side alongside the certificates that the FA do?
I think yes and no. I think the reason why I'm saying no, I think because universities is just are notorious for being academic. I think like the idea of what people have, the idea that people have of university is that, you know, it's academic. You go out there, you do a lot of essays, you write blah blah blah. And for me, like, I'm not sure about other universities. I only went to one university, obviously, but so my course was very much practical. So there's a lot of like where the module called professional practice, which basically meant you had to get like a set number of hours in actual practice. And then it wasn't just the case of, oh, you go on placement, you know, you walk around and do whatever. You had to do that. You had to write a reflective blog. So you had to do this whole blog after every session. You have to reflect on it and write about what you learned and do how did it go, and kind of reflect on the whole thing. So for me, I felt like, yeah, I did learn a lot in that sense. So so I feel like if you do have this, like if all the universities, for example, were in a context of like, you know, we're doing that professional practice, we're making sure that they're learning about something and also doing it so that they actually know how to do it, then yeah, I don't see a reason why going to university couldn't be another route. I think I understand why it's done because of maybe like insurance kind of stuff and legalities and things like that, which I understand that. Well, I think I had a discussion when I was in my undergrad, one of my lectures actually, because he was one of them used to be connected to the FA basically, and they were going on about how our course is kind of like some of the things that is in the coaching kind of development for the FA and other national government bodies are informed about some of the things that we do in sports coaching degrees, and some of the things that we do are informed about the things that are in coaching batches, right? And then they were just going about how, well, why are they kind of exclusive to each other sort of thing? Yeah. So why couldn't like a sports coaching degree be equivalent to a level 2 in a coaching for whatever specific sport? Maybe, you know, kind of looking at those two things, because essentially it is a similar thing. It is the same thing. I think for coaching, it's just more academic and you do it for 3 years kind of thing and you learn more in that sense. Whereas for obviously, if I would do a level 2 coaching batch right now, I'll be doing it just for football and I'll learn for that football and then that's it. And after I'm done, I'll get a badge and that's it, that's done. Whereas if I want to do a degree, I'm learning about a lot more. I'm learning about different sports and I benefit from understanding different sports. If you learn about, I don't know, American football and you can understand the tactical demands of American football, it's very easy to then come back to football and with a new perspective and then understanding how like can you be more creative around, I don't know, developing certain play styles, whatever kind of thing. So I think, so I think it's a complicated thing. I think as a general rule, I think I understand why it's done the way it's done, but at the same time, I think there could be steps that could be taken to kind of like make sure that, you know, it's not about having a badge, it's about what you know and what you can do, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think to anyone who hears that kind of message, there is no one way of doing it. And I think as coaches, analysts, or whatever form of sport you're in, and obviously we're talking specifically football, there is no straight line to how to improve and how to progress. It never goes straight. It's always wobbly.
Yeah, up and down. Yeah.
We look at the top coaches, you know, the Pep Guardiolas from, you know, obviously you're a Man City fan, and the Jurgen Klopps from my side. Is for me, I never look at them and what they've done and gone, I'm going to do exactly that.
Oh yeah,
it doesn't work that way. And the reason, I mean, just for the reason I call this coaching realities is it's storytelling, and this is your reality as a coach. You've gone down one route, and I asked the difficult questions to try and figure out the decisions you make along the way. You know, to do the masters, to do the analysis. Now, obviously, you're going into the coaching, and we'll touch on where you want to go from that in a little bit. But obviously, sticking to the coaching realities and trying to find how you've utilised your university analysis and coaching. Where would you say the hardest point? What's the hardest thing about being in the industry that we're now in football, being in the industry? And then what's been the highlight so far, whether it be at university and doing the analysis of football, and the same with what's been the hardest?
For me, it's really interesting because I think the hardest thing is to get in, the industry. Like I think obviously mentioned at the beginning that I met you at Amazon warehouse. And before that, I'd never done any academy work. I've only done like grassroots stuff, which is like, you know, you do it for free after school kind of thing. I think it's getting in, and I feel like it's very difficult. It's the culture. It's a sense of like who you know, and yeah, I feel like getting in is probably the most difficult thing, because even like my first game, like the first game without you, obviously I told you about it, we didn't win the game. We should have won the game because we're the better team. But the boss was there. He came over, like we came over to watch me like basically take charge of the game, and we were like, I think 2-0 down like on the first quarter, and then again this was my first game, and I've only done one session, and my session before that went horribly bad, and then my game is not going well, you know, should be winning this game, you know. And then all of a sudden my analysis were kicked in, because I could see what the problem was, clearly see what the problem was, and then my analysis stuff kicked in, and then I got everyone in and broke the game down. I was like, okay guys, this is what's going on, blah 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 blah. At the moment, I'm like nervous. I'm so nervous because he's like right behind me, just watching me, not saying anything. And I'm just there trying to sound like, you know, I'm not talking about, because I do know I'm talking about. I'm just trying to sound like a coach, you know. I'm trying to like, you know, make it seem like, I don't know. It was just that whole kind of vibe, basically. It was just really interesting. I think the fact that I could then show that I know what I'm talking about. I think that's why I'm still a coach here, because he did look at me and realize, okay, he does know what he's talking about, and that was all from an analysis point of view.
Yeah.
And that kind of gave me a little bit more, I don't know, confidence, I suppose. But because if you just looked at my CV, for example, you say, oh, level 1 football, no, we don't want him, right? It's just level 1. But because obviously I got in there through you, then obviously I can then show what I know. I can showcase what I know. Then I got the chance. I got the opportunity to do what I do right now, which obviously I'm grateful for. But I feel like without that kind of connection, that foot through the door, I would definitely never go that opportunity anyways. So I feel like that's probably the biggest barrier. I forgot what your second question was.
Yeah. So one of the things I love about that is the fact that, you know, I asked you what the hardest thing has been, and you mentioned that moment, and I laughed when you told me about the story. You know, you told me the story last week when we spoke about your first ever game a couple of weeks ago, and I did laugh because I knew it was going to happen. Like, I can't lie. I knew that it wasn't either going to go well or there was going to be something. And when you coach, when you're the one in charge, you take on a lot more than you realise. Obviously, you've been around the games and you've been in the car journey on the way back, where I just cannot focus on anything other than how rubbish it's been, or what I've done, or how the certain way I spoke was, or the changes I made and stuff like that. I think that's something only coaching gives you. You know, with analysis, I think maybe there's a bit of wiggle room. Obviously, with academics, it's all about what grade you get. With coaching, it's there in the moment, and it's how you perform in those moments.
Yeah. For me, I think, like for example, that game, it was very difficult switching from analysis to coaching, because from an analysis point of view, I could literally map out everything that we needed to do in the game. It was like, you know, I could map out everything. We're playing better, everything, right? And then I knew how to stop them, but I couldn't just switch over from analyst to kind of coach and then say, okay, and then be able to effectively communicate that to them and manage the players and like manage the attitude and manage the behavior. Of course, like if you're 2-0 down, it's not really about, you know, I don't know, having the best game plan. It's about being switched on mentally. It's about obviously getting them to be like, you know, we have that positive mindset to them again, and like, you know, think positive and think they can go, you have the confidence that they can go forward and win it, right? And I couldn't kind of switch over from analyst to coach, which was very difficult. And then of course, after that, I came over and talked to you, and I was panicking and everything. And then after that, that's when I went to like my session. I went back to, after that conversation with you, I went back to the basics, right? What do I know about coaching, right? I need to plan. I need to plan properly. I need to plan something that's appropriate for them. I need to, when I'm doing, I need to think about my behaviors. I need to think about all of this. So that was quite a hard way basically of doing that whole process of actually coaching properly, switching over from analyst to coach kind of thing. That whole process was not a very easy transition, basically. So
it's nice to hear that those were the take-home messages from our conversation. I think for anyone who, you know, you can't just jump. I think one of the biggest things from this, you can't just jump from one shift to another. If you do analysis, you can't just jump into coaching. If you do coaching, you can't just jump into analysis. And there has to be something that gives you the background knowledge. And like I spoke about before, the academics and the experience, you need to have a kind of mixture of the two. And I'm not saying academics by university, I'm talking about the levels, something that's given you an example, the kind of like I think what academics does is give you that perfect example.
Yeah.
That's something to live up to. And the experience gives you that coaching reality, shameless plug, the coaching reality to what you want to do. And when you merge the two together, the perfect and the reality, you will hopefully get a good product out of it.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like, if I showed you my undergrad certificate right now, you'd think I'm a perfect coach. I've got a first-class degree, you know. You think I'm like a perfect coach out there. And then the reality of it is that, well, no, that's just the half of it. You need the other half, which is experience, which is coaching practice, which is actually doing it. And when you're actually doing it, you need to do what you learned. And I think that's the hard part, because it's very easy to just go into a session and make it up as you go along. But then you need to do the hard part and actually think about it critically, think about, okay, what am I going to be doing in these sessions? Why am I going to be doing this, that part? Then the more you do that, the more experience you gain from that. Then that's where the real improvement comes in, I think. I think, again, whether your academic side is your coaching badges or your degree, whatever it is, I think it's really important to understand that, well, that's just the half of the job. The other job is actually doing what it says on the paper.
Yeah. And just kind of summarize what we covered. Obviously, you've been fighting on a lot of different fronts. You've worked, you know, in the analysis side, and you're now delving into the coaching side. And there's, you know, we've identified the kind of difficulties between the two of them, and the positives as well. You know, it's clear to see that your game understanding has always been there from, you know, being a football fan, and obviously then being able to work in football where you watch football as a job, obviously Bradford. And then obviously to then go into the coaching side, which you know, and I think from your point of view, jumping into the coaching side was harder, and it might be from someone else's point of view, going from coaching to analysis was harder. You never know. And again, the conversation between academics and experience will always go on. But the pathway you've chosen is, and you know, will continue to do. Hopefully, end of this year you finish your masters.
Yeah.
End of this year you finish your masters. You will have done a long time at Guiseley, and obviously your experience before. So to kind of end it on, where are you now looking to go? Because for me personally, this whole podcast and what I want to do is talking about development of, you know, someone else to then inspire other people, development of myself to do a podcast and talk online and to talk to people and to learn from other people like yourself. I always tell you I learn from you all the time. I think you're probably sick of hearing that now.
Like,
but
you did for me, mate.
but yeah, so what's next for you? What's your plan?
Well, my plan goal right now is just to get my level 2. I think I want to kind of have that development as a coach. I think I want to continue my development as a coach, because I think that's really important, because I've genuinely enjoyed coaching. I think I mentioned at the beginning that I've done like grassroots football, and I enjoyed it, right? And there's nothing bad about it, but you felt like there was something missing, and like academy feels like it's that something missing. There's a bit more precious, more serious kind of thing, and I think that's what I wanted to do. And now that I'm there, I just want to keep developing as a coach. So I think my next one is get my level 2 as soon as this pandemic is over. And then I've always, again, I'm interested in analysis work, and I genuinely do find it intriguing. Like, I watch games and I sometimes just look at some of the things that if if I was the analyst or a coach or whatever, I would like, okay, that's something that you need to change. It's something that's obvious. I see some of the things, or I hear commentators talking about something that I'm like, yeah, sure, yeah. Like, you know, it's just, I see so many little things that I find it very intriguing. And I feel like that's the analyst in me. And I definitely like to go on as an analyst, but I think with coaching as well, I think I would love to carry on coaching. I think most of the coaching roles would be like, you know, coaching a few days a week anyways. So I think I don't see why I can't do both. I enjoy both. I don't see why I can't do both. I love football and I love analyzing games. I also love coaching. So I don't see why I can't do both. But I think going forward, obviously I will try and get into analysis stuff and develop as a coach as well and get my level 2 qualification and carry on coaching and genuinely love coaching. Like I was just
I think the perfect way to end, you know, one, the first podcast, and two, from a personal point for me, is one of the best bits of advice I ever got. Well, it wasn't even advice; it was a question. It was just one question which set me up for where I am now. Is what, regardless of what you have now or what you think is realistic, what is the dream? Where's the dream job actually lie? You know, forget about location, forget about, you know, girlfriends, forget about anything to do that can affect anything. Perfect world, what's the dream job?
Dream job is to make it to like Premier League, mate. I mean, being an analyst for like Premier League team would be like amazing. I think I understand, obviously it would be like the pressure and hard work and hours and everything. Yeah, I'm excited for that. That's what I want, you know, like the pressure and the importance of the work that you're going to be doing and things like that. And I feel like, you know, we'll be working with some of the best minds in football, with some of the, like, you know, most kind of gifted coaches and analysts and the whole kind of most amazing teams in the world. I can, like, for me, that would be like the ultimate dream. And yeah, I would give my left arm to do that.
Give my left. Why not the right? Is that the right hand? Your right hand.
Yeah.
Give a left hand. The right hand's useful. No,
yeah, my right hand is the pointing hand. Yeah.
I like it. Like I said, I almost went down the teaching route, and that one question changed my whole life. And I don't mean that. I don't say that lightly. Like, I genuinely, I'm sat in a, you know, I can't lie. I'm sat in a 5-star hotel, looking at, on the top floor, looking over Bangkok, and that one question has completely changed my course. If not, I would have been.
You should have asked me this question before, so I have time to think about it, mate.
No. This is the last question. I think because, like I say, I want to. You know, eventually, if I can interview some pros, great. You know, if I can interview some really top guys, and I will still be sipping wine when I speak to them, and I still will ask them the question to start. You know, who do you support and what's your favorite moment in football? Because, you know, the one thing about coaching, the one thing about being successful is you have to be a little bit different. You have to be someone that people want, you know, to be marketable, to be, you know, the difference maker.
Yeah, for sure, yeah.
Be someone people talk about, you know, and I looked at other podcasts and listened to the podcasts, and, you know, and I love podcasts that are just talking about life, and this is talking about coaching realities, and we've got a really good taste, and I'm sure I still have more questions for you, so I'm sure I'll have you on episode 2 and 3, and, you know, if I can't find anyone else, it'll be Moyo episode 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. But yeah,
actually adding on like one of the life-changing kind of questions or kind of things, like I think when I was doing my undergrad as well, like at the end of the year they had this kind of Q&A thing, because they asked Paul Thankyou to come to our uni, because he did his master's at Leeds as well. So they asked him to come over and like ask and like just for students, just do a Q&A, blah blah blah, like, you know, that kind of thing. And then one of like the questions I had to ask was like, well, then what's like important for any kind of analyst? And he said like, it's your understanding with the coach, like making sure that you understand what the coach wants, and there's no point of you going out there collecting like, you know, lots of data that's meaningless to the coach. And for me, that's kind of been like one of the driving motivations behind pretty much everything I do. I think me coaching as well is me understanding game. I still want to understand the game from a coach's perspective. And me doing analysis work is me understanding from my kind of own perspective. I think if you combine the two, I think it puts you in a better position to understand the games. I think, again, that's why I was saying, like, one of my key skills is being open-minded, because, again, you're going to be working with different coaches. I think it worked with us as well, because obviously with our kind of philosophy or idea how, like, possession-based games should be played, I think you were just more progressive. Couldn't get the ball forward as quickly as you can. For me, it was more like, can we keep the ball kind of thing, and progressive kind of thing. So it was more like, I keep the ball, then progressive, you progress the ball as fast as you can. And for me, that was like, I adapt to that and understand, obviously, like, this is how basically we want to play, and learn from that. And to be fair, I understood, like, looking back now as a coach as well, I understand why. I appreciate your kind of philosophy a bit more now when I'm coaching, because obviously it's shifted my expectations and understanding of the game a bit more. So I think, again, that open-mindedness to know that you can work with different people and understand, their ideas and philosophy, and actually get that full understanding of what they're looking for, what they want. I think this is a brilliant skill to have, and this one that I want to develop more and more and more, basically.
Yeah, I thought for a second you were going to come up with my coaching philosophy there. I thought you were going to talk down to my coaching philosophy. I appreciate your time. I had a conversation before this review, so that's taken 40 minutes out of your day, and this has taken an hour out of your day as well, so I appreciate your time.
It's all right.
Just to end, I hope people enjoyed this, and I think the first 10-15 minutes a little bit awkward. That's because, for me, my question asking has to improve already. I know that already. Like to one, I did about 7 or 8 intros before the start of this, trying to figure out what to do. And in terms of anyone who is listening, and any coaches who are interested in telling their story on a very casual podcast, where I want to talk about coaching reality and not just the perfect world that we get when it comes to listening to podcasts and listening to people on the TV. Like you say, even you scratch your hair about the analysis that the pros do, the pros players do, shall we say. To hear what people actually are doing on the grassroots side and on the academy side and in the professional game where people are still developing. So yeah, thanks for your time. Thanks for tuning in, and hopefully we'll see you again on the next one.
No, thank you, mate. Thank you for having me, and invite me back for episode 50, by the way.
Episode 3. Hi. Cheers. Right. Bye.
Thank you.